So, I think it's about time I tell my testimony. It's kind of long, so I'm going to only tell the parts that are relevant because my whole life is a testimony. So, I don't know. But this journey that I am with God started, it started about 2023, I believe. So, before all this, just a little backstory. I got church hurt 3 times by 3 different churches, and each church hurt me differently. And so by the 3rd church, I was completely done because I kept trying, and I was done. Me and God were like this, but I was just done with people. I was done. I told God that I would never go to another church again. Me and him can be like this, but I'm done. I throw in the towel. So I'm so glad that we serve a loving, gracious God because he met me where I was at. And, he loved me through the process because it was a process. Because growing up, I was taught a little differently. So even though I've always had God with me, I also had the enemy with me too. I just didn't know it. Ever since I was little, I started doing witchcraft. And I remember being 5 in the backyard, making potions, making spells. I've always been poetic, so it just came natural to me. And I loved it, but in my head and in my heart, I was never doing any of that to hurt other people. I considered myself like a healer, kind of like naturopath, like along those lines. So not a witch that does like curses and hexes or any of that. So I thought you could be a spiritual witch or a Christian witch. I didn't think that at 5, but I was headed on that journey because it followed me all the way to my adulthood. And and side note, not to get lost, but my mom always talked about how I used to have an imaginary friend that I used to talk to all the time. And part of me wonders if I was really talking to the enemy because to this day I have no idea where I learned the witchcraft. Like, I don't know, I've always been into that. I've always been into tarot cards, fortune telling, crystals, stuff. Well, crystals came later when I started getting into the new age stuff. But it kind of just always followed me. So throughout my life, I've always kind of been in and out. Like, I would go to witchcraft, then I would go to church, get hurt by the church, then go back to the witchcraft. Like, it was just a constant battle. Like, it was just a tug of war. And it was crazy because the witchcraft felt like it was my identity. It just felt like that's who I was. And it was so ingrained and so embedded in me, that it was very hard to change my mindset. Well, after getting hurt by the 3rd church, I was fully, walking on that path. And, I still had God by my side, and he protected me through a lot of this, because there were a lot of times where my house should have burnt down, and it just should have been a bad situation. So glad that we serve gracious God. But anyways, one day I went to the mall, and I wasn't even supposed to be at the mall, but I was taking my daughter there, and so we could meet up with her dad, and yeah. Well, anyways, when we get to the mall, someone stops me and was like, "Hey, I'll give you $5 if you can say a Bible verse." And I was flat broke at the time, but I'm super shy. And, I don't even like posting videos. So this is me, getting outside of my comfort zone. But, I'm super shy. But for some reason that day, what flew out of my mouth was John 3:16. God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And, I was on camera, and I was just it shocked me that I gave that response. Because I was on camera, because I was so hurt by the church, I was just done. So when that happened, I like walked around the mall 3 times and I was like, I wonder what church they're a part of, you know? And so after that, so after the 3rd time, I went and I talked to them and asked them what church, and I got their address and stuff. And I was like, well, maybe this will be my last shot, my last attempt. I'll just try it out. Like, I wasn't sure, but I was just a little lost, you know? And so, so then when was it? I think it was that Wednesday comes around, and I ended up going to the church. So Wednesday came around, I started going to church, and, but in my head I was like, I can't get too close to them, because I know how this is going to play out. And so it took me about 8 months before I could actually like really like get my feet in the door and just like really like be accepting. And there was a lot of unlearning I had to do. And I didn't realize what the Lord was preparing me for, because I had a calling on my life. I just didn't know it. And so at this time, I was anti-Bible. I was like, the Bible's not real. I don't agree with half the stuff in it. Don't understand it. It's just not. Well, what led me to the Bible was every time I would have a question, the pastor would always say, have you been in your word? Have you been in your Bible? Have you done this? Have you done that? And at the time, I didn't understand it, because I was like, how is this Bible that, you know, is not alive? Like, how is it going to talk to me? How is it going to give me the answers? How is it going to solve anything? I don't get it. And she's like, have you even tried it yet? And I was like, no, but I just know, you know? But finally one day I got desperate, and I just felt like this like tug on my heart. So I was like, you know what? I will just try it. And that was when I had my first encounter with Jesus, like my actual first real encounter. I was going through this period where I was fighting with my church because there was a misunderstanding. And instead of leaning on my own understanding, I was like, let me lean on God's understanding and try to figure the situation out, because something ain't right. Because I know that I'm not a gossiper. I know that I'm not doing this. So like, what's going on? And it was a beautiful moment and a beautiful teaching opportunity, because God showed me so much through that encounter. I spent 3 days trying to figure out this problem and what happened and what went wrong. And it was really cool, because I've always heard people talk about having visions and talking to the Lord and stuff like that. But I never experienced it firsthand, because my heart was never open and I was never accepting of it. I just kind of thought that's just what people say, you know, because I never experienced it, because my heart was so closed off, and I kind of like built a wall around it. So when I had my first encounter with Jesus, I was like, kept digging deeper and kept digging deeper. And he showed me a lot of things. And he showed me where I went wrong. And it was funny, because I was like fighting with him back and forth too. I was like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then it was kind of like, he'd be like, let's start from the beginning. And I'm like, we already did this. I was like, we've already went through this. And he'd be like, let's start from the beginning and go from there. And so then finally I was like, okay, let me put my pride down and really try to focus and understand. And then I came to the realization of my faults of what I did, you know, because at the time I didn't know how to fully explain to my pastor an issue that I had with another member at the church. And so I kind of threw that mentor like under the bus by accident, because in my head I didn't know how to explain the situation to the pastor, that I just felt uncomfortable like dealing with this. And so I said, you know, that and at this time I just started reading the Bible, so I didn't get to this part in Matthew where it talks about the steps of what you do when you have a problem with someone in the church, you know. So, because what I should have done is I should have talked to her first, you know, and if that didn't work, you know, then I talk to the pastor, and then if that doesn't work, then you talk to the church, and if that doesn't work, like there's like steps to that. Well, instead of that, I just went straight to the pastor, not meaning to, but the pastor questioned me, and I didn't want to lie, and I didn't want to be rude, so that's what I chose to say. And I didn't realize that I was in the wrong at the time, but I really, really hurt that member's feelings. And it was a beautiful encounter that I had, because when I got accused of gossiping, because I got accused of gossiping with a whole different situation than this, but the person who accused me of gossiping was the one that I hurt. And because of that, it hurt me deeply, but on a different level. I was like, why do I feel this kind of emotion towards it? Because I know who I am, but I don't get it. And so God showed me was, he gave me that person's feelings. So I got to experience what she was feeling. And I was like, wow, like I didn't even realize that, So then I got to apologize to her later on and kind of explain the situation. But that was the first moment that like really led me to the Bible. And I was just like, wow. And so after that, like I kept on digging. And so then one day I was like really desperate. I was going through a lot, and I was just going through like a lot of spiritual warfare. And I didn't understand it at the time, because I was giving up a lot of stuff. Like I gave up relationships. I gave up friendships. Like everything the Lord wanted me to get rid of my old life, I was getting rid of. I was even working towards getting rid of witchcraft. But I didn't realize that I was a witch at the time. Like it was crazy. Like I didn't realize what I was doing until I tried to get out. And it literally felt like the enemy was jumping me out of a gang. Like that's really what it felt like. But I'll get into that in a minute, because that's another story. So I kept on, I just kept on like reading my word and just getting deeper and deeper. And so when I was desperate, because I was going through all this stuff, I was like, Lord, like if this Bible is real, if you were really talking to me, I need you to put Songs 23 into the pastor's heart, because that's a song that brought me back from the dead a long time ago, when I first stopped believing in God, when I was like 18 going through it. So I was like, if you're real, well, I know you're real, but if your word's real, then I need you to reveal yourself to me. And what I did is I went on a fast. I didn't even know what fasting was at the time, but that's what the Lord placed on my heart to do. It's funny because it's actually on video at my old church, and I called it a spiritual break. Like, just looking back at my growth and where I started, it's comical in a way, but it's really beautiful to see. And it was nice that it was caught on camera. But I told the Lord, I was like, if this is what you want me to do, put it in the pastor's heart, and I will step in my calling full force, and I will give it all to you, And the Lord heard that prayer. He heard it, and he was like, all right, I'm going to hold you to it. So that Wednesday came around. I was super excited. I fasted. So I was ready to go. And what was supposed to happen was, it was supposed to be written on the board. I was supposed to read it, and I was supposed to give a testimony. That's what's supposed to happen in my head. But the Lord is so much greater, and his plan is so much better than ours. That's why we don't lean on our understanding. We lean on his. So when I got there, it wasn't written on the board. I was super disappointed. I was just like, what are you doing? I was like, I even told the Lord, I was like, do you know what you missed out on? Like, do you know you missed out on this opportunity? And I could have swore I felt him like humble me. And he was just like, child, like, do you know that I am God, and what I do is so much greater than what you even know? And I was like, no, you're right. And so then I thought, well, what do you do when God doesn't answer your prayer? Or he doesn't answer it the way that you want it answered? That was what I was thinking. So I was just like, well, maybe I didn't do it right. I don't know, this is my first time going on this spiritual break, so maybe I'll try again next week. What ended up happening was right before the pastor's husband, because at our church we have a female pastor, before the pastor's husband went up to preach, she went up there and she said, "The Lord placed Psalms 23 into my heart." My heart dropped because I'm like, Lord, this is not the plan. What am I supposed to do now? Part of that promise was I was supposed to say a testimony. Now I have to be this rebel in the church. That's what I was thinking at the time. Just my anxiety with being shy. So I was just now I have to interrupt and say all the things that I said I was going to say. But it was God is so much greater. And so he understands my heart and he knows this was a plan. So right before, and he was so nervous too, the pastor's husband. I felt so bad, but I stood up and I gave my testimony, and it's so powerful because of that testimony, because it was on camera, and because it was that way, so sudden, I was able to share that testimony with other people and bring them closer to God. And so I was like, this is why your plan is so much greater. Because if it was my way, it would have just been so much simple. But it taught me a lot through that. So it was kind of cool. There was a whole bunch of meanings within that. Well, that was the first beginning of my testimony. Okay? Because after that day, after I accepted the yes, that's when the spiritual warfare really kicked off. And no one prepared me for what was yet to come because I didn't realize how deep I was in witchcraft and how deep I had to really shake everything from my past. But the Lord stood by me through it all. And it would have been 10 times worse if I wasn't with him, if he wasn't with me. So after that, I started noticing a change in my house. The closer that I got to God, the messier my house got. And I could not figure out what was going on because it felt like my house was a beast. Every single week, I was hitting breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. I was breaking chains. I was breaking addictions. I was breaking traumas. I was healing myself. I was healing the trauma from past relationships and past friendships. And it just was my life felt like a movie. And everything was moving so fast, I could barely keep up. But I was hungry and I was on fire and I was reading my Bible every single day, just really putting in the work. I didn't just go to church on Wednesday or Sunday. When I went to church, I took that stuff home and I studied it. Took that stuff home and I really applied it. And so that's why the breakthroughs happened as fast as they did. Well, the closer I got to God, the messier my house got. And it turned into this beast. And then it was every time I was home, I'd get super depressed. And I didn't understand why. Well, one day, and it was weird because I would clean and then it felt like I was in a movie. I would clean and I would turn right back around and my house is messy again. And I'm I just cleaned this, or the room would take super, super long to clean. And I'm just how is this going on? But what I didn't realize was that demons are attracted to mess. And because of the objects I had in my house, I was attracting demons. I was leaving doors open. And it was just chaos. Well, one day I broke. And I had a breakdown in my car. I was talking to my friend and I was what is going on? Explained the whole situation to her. And she was she knows that me and my mom yard sale sometimes. So she was do you have anything in your house from yard selling? That has bad energy or open door or something. And the Lord showed me a vision. He showed me a vision of a dream catcher that I got about 10 years ago. And now it's 10 years ago, but at the time it was 8 or 9 years ago. And I kept that dream catcher because my friend at the time gave it to me. And he was my best friend that I went to elementary school with. We were friends since 3rd grade. We were BFFs. But I didn't know that he had a crush on me at the time. This whole time, everyone around me knew that he had a crush on me except for me. I'm the type, if you like me, you gotta tell me because there ain't no way I'm gonna know. So When my birthday came around, he came to my birthday, and he came over and he made me a dream catcher. And so I kept it, okay? And at that time, my eyes were closed, but now my eyes are open. So when I found the dream catcher, I looked at it through a different lens. And when I was looking at it, I was just like, wow, like that is the witchiest dream catcher I've ever seen in my life. You know, like it had symbols, it had my initials carved in, it had, it just had like a lot of stuff. And so when I was holding it, I had two voices in my head. One said destroy it, and one said throw it away. If I wasn't in my word, I wouldn't have recognized the second voice that said to throw it away, because that was the enemy. If I would have threw it away, that dream catcher would have still had a hold on me because it was cursed. And so when I was gonna destroy it, I actually called my cousin because I was like super scared at the time. Which, if you're ever in a situation, do not show fear, because fear is from the enemy, okay? And it makes it 10 times stronger. So when I called her up, we unraveled it together, and I felt like I was on fire. Like, I felt like I was burning. And so I knew that I was on the right track because of that. And so part of the story that I missed was 8 years ago, the same month I got that dream catcher, I ended up going on a work retreat and getting Lyme disease. That destroyed 8 years of my life. I was paralyzed. I was bedridden. I almost died. That is a whole horror story in itself, that I could make a 30-minute video on that. But it was one of the worst times of my life. I couldn't even work. I had to be put on disability. It was really debilitating. I had to raise my 6-year-old from a bed, basically. I couldn't even cook, couldn't even hold a dish, like to wash the dishes. It was unreal. Well, anyways, I got Lyme disease the same month I got that dream catcher. But I never put two and two together until that moment when I unraveled it, and all of a sudden my pain went away. And I was like, wow. So part of my Lyme disease, because I got treatment for it, and it was about 90 or 85-90% gone. But I still had lingering pain. Well, the lingering pain left when I destroyed the dream catcher. So I thought that was interesting. And so after that, I realized how real witchcraft is, you know? And so after that moment, I had the realization, I'm done. So then I got baptized at the church that I was at. And the day that I got baptized was the day that I threw away my tarot cards. And that was a scary experience for me, because that's when I really irritated the demons, because I was tormented by them for 3 weeks. Because I threw away my tarot cards. I was completely done. And I cannot explain to you the guilt that I felt when I threw those away. The guilt, the shame, just all of this emotions that was attached to it. I kept having, I felt like I needed to go in the dumpster and literally get them. You know, it was the weirdest feeling. But I knew better, and I know you can't be halfway in and halfway out. You know, I'm either going to be protected by God, or I'm going to try to go play with the devil, you know? And I was not about to do that. So I was faith over fear, all the way. But it was a scary experience. And so then after that, still my house kept getting messier. And so I knew I had to gather all my witchcraft stuff and throw it away. Well, my house got so out of control, I didn't even know how to clean it. So I kept asking friends and members of the church to help me clean it, because it was just out of control. I tried myself. I tried, but I just couldn't physically do it all on my own, especially with working and with my daughter and with life, and I just wanted it done. Like, I was just so done with all of it. I just wanted the witchcraft stuff gone, you know? So, but every time I'd ask someone, something would happen. Well, finally, my friend, she seen what I was going through, and she's like, no, like, I'm going to come over and I'm going to help you. And I was like, cool. So we made a plan, but 10 minutes before she was going to come over, her roof collapsed. And I have pictures of that. I'm not technical savvy, so I'm going to try to figure out how to attach that. But her roof collapsed, and she wasn't able to help me, like, that day. And I'm just, like, sitting there crying, reading the Bible, like, Lord, like, the world's against me. My church thinks I'm crazy. Just all this stuff. I feel like I'm alone. What do I do? You know? But thank goodness the Lord led me to one of my spiritual sisters who helped me through it because she knew about spiritual warfare. And so she was like, no, I'm coming over and we're going to get it done. And I felt so bad because I was like, no, dude, my house is bad. It is bad, bad. I should be on TV right now, bad, you know? So she came over and helped me clean it. And so she came over, helped me clean it, and she helped me gather all my witchcraft stuff, all of it, and we put it in a box. Well, actually, I put in, like, to me, it felt personal. I do not recommend this. I do not recommend playing, okay? Because if you play with the devil, like, he loves those games. But I put all my witchcraft stuff in the cat litter box, and I was like, yeah. And then my next plan was to burn it because I was done. Because I was tormented for 3 weeks. I was seeing demons. I was having demonic dreams. I felt like a life force was getting sucked out of me. Like, it really felt like there was, like, something standing over me, like, sucking my life force. I had no energy, couldn't move off the couch. I wasn't depressed. Like, it was a different feeling. It felt like I just couldn't move, you know? And then finally, my friend encouraged me, like, once we got the witchcraft stuff gathered and all that, she was like, you need to anoint your house. And I was like, dude, I don't have no energy to get up. How am I supposed to do this? But the last ounce of energy, it was like the Lord gave me his strength because I got myself up. And I didn't even know how to do this stuff, you know? But I prayed and I was like, Lord, help me do this. And so, so I started just anointing every single wall, corner, window, door, knob, like all of that. And stuff started falling off the walls. I was scared. I've never been so scared in my life. Like, they were falling off the walls, falling off the shelves. Like the demons were pissed. I'm still working on myself. I probably shouldn't have said that, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know, like, I'm not perfect. And I still have, like, a lot of stuff that I still have to change, but, progress. So, but anyways, they were just, it was just really hard. And so, so things were just falling, and it was just a mess. So then I went to go give it to my church, and I really wanted to give it to my church so we can burn it. I kind of got a little hurt because instead of burning it, they just threw it away, which I wasn't the happiest because I don't want anyone else to have those items. You know, like, if you are ever in this situation, never give this stuff away because you're just opening a door for someone else, you know? So I really recommend burning it. But in my head also at the time, like, it was personal. I was just like, it is on. Like I just want to light this on fire. Like, just have a little bonfire and be like, screw you, devil. Like, that's the vibe I was on. Because it was just so bad and so intense. Like, I was having really bad dreams of getting human trafficked. But it was real. Like, it felt so real, and I could not wake up out of it. And then I was having dreams that friends or loved ones were demons, and they were trying to, like, possess me or curse me. and I had to keep, like, I'd have to, like, fight in my dreams. So I was fighting while I was awake. I was fighting while I was sleeping. I was tired all the time. Like, I felt like I was in hell. Church thought I was crazy. The world thought I was crazy. The only thing that really helped was, I feel bad, but my daughter was going through this with me as well. So I knew I wasn't crazy. I knew I wasn't in this all by myself, because she would see demons outside the window. Like, just like hanging upside down like a monkey. And I feel bad that she has that experience, but at least now she knows how real this stuff is. So she won't go down the same path. So there's that, but yeah, it was just a mess. But even though I was going through all this, the Lord was still working through me and working through all these things, because every little thing that I had in my life had something that I had to work through. Like, it was just trauma or something. So, and I had to really change my mindset, because one thing that was hard for me to let go of was crystals. And it took me a very long time to understand this. And hear me when I say this, because when you use crystals for healing and for stuff like that, it's not okay. And you're really playing with the devil here. You really are. Because the Lord is what heals you, not the crystal. Because crystals itself is not wrong, Like, if you're using crystals for decorations or for gardening or stuff like that, that's different. But when you're using crystal, like for me, I could never have a crystal because of what it meant to me and how I would use it to meditate and stuff like that. Like, it's a trigger for me. So it's different, So I'm not saying like crystals are totally wrong and the crystals are 100% an open door. But it is an open door when you're using it for witchcraft, if that makes sense. So, and this is just what I've learned so far in my learning journey. I'm going to continue learning the more deeper I go into the Bible, but this is what the Lord has showed me so far. And, yeah, but the crystal was the last thing to go. And what got me to do that was one time when I was in Portland, still Christian, shouldn't have bought it. I knew better. At this time, I didn't really fully experience all of this spiritual warfare I'm talking about right now. Because if I did, I would have stayed away. But I bought a crystal at a shop. I felt drawn to a crystal, bought it, and then I lost it. So the day that I bought it was the day that I lost it. And I was like, well, maybe it wasn't meant to be. And there's this thing that goes like, if you lose a crystal and it reappears, like that's when you needed it. Like, or like when you lose a crystal, you don't need it. I don't know. So I was just like, well, maybe it'll reappear one day. Tell me why. I unpacked my whole suitcase, put everything away, and then a couple days later, my daughter was at school, and I see it right in the center of my bed that I just made. Like, there was no way that I could have put it there myself. I thought she was pranking me. When she got home, I was furious. I was like, what is this? Like, and my daughter was confused. So she was just like, what are you talking about? I didn't do it, And my daughter was really confused. And so I know she didn't do it. And there's no logical way she could have, because I made my bed when she was at school. But in my head, I was like, who else could have done that, So because of that scared the crap out of me. And so I put that crystal away, like, in one of my lock boxes. And I didn't see it since until finally I was like doing some, after the whole spiritual warfare thing happened, I was like, Lord, you need to help me figure out this crystal thing. Are crystals good or bad? Like, I need you to tell me, not other people. I want your word to tell me. So finally he led me to some passages in the Bible of it, and where it talked about like, I wish I could remember it, but pretty much like what good is a stone. I I don't know. I'll try to find the passage and put it, I don't know, and put it in the description or something. But, like, it made sense. And I was just like, okay, like, I get it now. Like, that was my wake-up call. And so then that's when I threw away all my crystals. But that was literally the last thing to go. But I was, like, it was crazy because it was, like, I would solve one problem and then, I don't know, it really felt like I was getting jumped out of a gang when I left the whole witchcraft stuff. So it was just like, never again. Only if I would have known what I know now then, and I don't know. But it was a learning experience for me. And I'm glad that I did experience it so I can share it and help other people out of it. Yeah. But since then, I have been so much happier. I have never been so much happier in my life. And don't get me wrong, it's not perfect. Still dealing with spiritual warfare, just a different kind, you know? But that's the thing, is when you have God, like, things are not going to be easy. Things are easier in ways, but things are also harder in ways. Because, you know, the enemy is constantly fighting against you when you're stepping out into your calling and you're, you know, fully doing what God wants you to do. But God will never leave your side, and he will always give you strength, you know? And so I'm so grateful to be serving him instead of serving the enemy, because a lot of the spiritual warfare that I experienced that I didn't know about was pretty much God destroying my old life because it was built on a floppy foundation, because I built everything around the enemy's counterfeits, pretty much. You know, and so what God wanted to do was he wanted to build it on his firm foundation. And so he had to kind of like destroy everything to build me back up. And so now I'm doing a lot better. And it's actually funny because, like, one of the breakthroughs that I experienced recently was I was able to get off one of my antidepressants that I've been on for 10 years. And that was a scary, scary experience for me, because I didn't know who this version of me was without the medicine. I'm not off everything yet, but God convicted me, and this is why it's very important to listen to God's conviction versus what other people are telling you in your life, you know? Because if you don't listen to God and you just do it because your pastor said you need to be medication free, you know, like, is that God's will or is that the pastor's? You know? So what I had to do was really listen to God, and he wanted me to get off this medication, which was a mood stabilizer, because it was preventing me from crying when I needed to cry. And it was very important to me to have, like, breakthroughs through worship, and I really wanted to be fully present, but I couldn't do that because I was numb. And so that's kind of why I ended up getting off that. And I got deliverance from that. But I don't know. It was just really cool. And it's really cool to see this version of me, because this is the version of me that I've been searching for the last 10 years. You know, like, I love this version of me than Martha's old identity, than Candy's old identity. You know, I don't miss the old me, you know. And I thought I was never going to say that, you know. I haven't smiled so much in my life. Like, I have always just dealt with depression and just have been miserable. But don't get me wrong, I still have depression days, and some days are better than others. But it's nice when I can just lay down and I could ask the Lord for a hug, and I could actually feel it, and I could feel the warmth. You know, like, I've never had that before, but I've never had, like, a relationship with the Lord. Like, I've always had God with me, but it was more of a one-sided relationship. Like, I didn't really fully learn about having a relationship with the Lord until later, you know. I always learned about being religious, and you got to be careful of having a religious spirit, because religion is not having a relationship with God. Those are two different things. And it took me a very long time to realize that, you know. but I'm so blessed for everything that the Lord has brought me through. And he has greatly changed my life, and I'm still changing. There are still some things that I'm getting delivered from, and, like, sometimes the Lord can change you overnight, but then there are some things that take time. Like, one thing that took time for me was breaking my marijuana addiction. And I started that because when I was in constant pain, nothing would numb the pain except for the marijuana. But when I was free from Lyme disease, I didn't need it anymore. And so then when I tried to stop, I realized it was an addiction. And for me, it was bad because that's all I wanted to do. I planned my life around smoking. So that's another testimony. And I'm just so thankful for everything the Lord has done. So, I don't know. I just wanted to share my testimony and let you know how great the Lord is. Like, I never thought I was going to be where I am now. Like, I'm not exactly where I want to be, but I am far from where I used to be. And I am so blessed. And I'm so thankful that the Lord has been so gracious and so patient and so loving, that he pulled me up out of the mud, and he came back for that night. He left the 99 sheep to come back for that one, and that one was me. So I'm just so grateful for him. And I just wanted to give the glory to God. So, yeah. Anyways, I hope you have a beautiful day. And, I don't know. I hope you could get something from my testimony.